Welcome to Econ 317. In this video, we will go over the solution to review questions for the first midterm. So let's start with the first question, which is on market equilibrium. First part is dealing with the demand side of the market. So we have been given a table of the quantity and prices observed for the behavior of the buyers. So I have price here and quantity here, but this is quantity demanded. I will write QD for demand and the quantity is in boxes. Price is in, so price notation is P, dollars per box. And then we are given that when price is 100, there are no buyers. Price goes down to 80, buyers are willing and able to buy 20 boxes. 60, it becomes 40. 80, it becomes 20. No, sorry. 40 is, it becomes 60 and 20, it becomes 80. So that's the information given to us. First, I would like to draw a graph. And for drawing the graph, we will always have the graph for inverse demand function. So that's the graph we always draw, inverse demand function. Quantity on the horizontal axis, price on the vertical. So I have QD here, unit is in boxes. Always keep in mind we must label the graph. So price, this is in dollars per box. And I know when price is 100, quantity is 0. I will draw the graph first, then I will show the points on this graph. So 100 here, $100 price, 0 quantity. Price goes down to 80. We know the quantity increases to 20. Price goes down to 60. Quantity goes up further to 40. Then it becomes 40. We see price to be 60. And then quantity, when price is 20, quantity turns out to be 80. Here, I am also making an inference. I am connecting the points in between the prices from 100 to 80 by a straight line. Because you can see every time there is a decline in price by 20 units, quantity goes up by 20 units, 20 boxes. And that's how I'm making another inference that when price goes close to 0, I'm not assuming price to be exactly 0, but close to 0, then the quantity should be close to 100 boxes. So that's an inference we make usually, but remember there has to be a caveat that price cannot be 0. Okay, so that was the part A of this demand side. Part B, we are required to write down the equation for the inverse demand function. You can see the demand function is downward sloping, and I will first find out the slope of the demand function, which is the rise over run. And so let's pick any 2 points. I'll pick the first two. So when price is 100 goes to 80, quantity goes up from 0 to 20. So I am consistent in writing the price and quantity pairs in the sense that when price is 100, quantity is 0, price is 80, quantity is 20. So I have 20 in the numerator negative 20 in the denominator, and that turns out to be negative 1. So you can see the slope is negative 1. I can now write down price to be equal to the vertical intercept being 100 minus slope is 1, so negative 1 times QD, which I can simplify because we don't write when we multiply by 1, we don't write the coefficient, so 100 minus QD. That's the expression for the inverse demand function. Given this, we can now solve for price given any quantity or quantity given any price. So here we have been given price is given to be $50 per box, which means the quantity I need to find out. So 50 is the price, 100 minus QD, quantity should turn out to be, I take QD from right hand side negative to the left hand side, goes as positive, and I take 50 on the left hand side, which is positive, to the right hand side will go as negative, and I find out 50. So when price is $50 per box, quantity demanded is 50 boxes. That was the first part where we were dealing with the demand side of the market. Now we go to the supply. And again here we have been given the information about price and quantity supplied pairs in a table. So this time price, this is price of supply. No, I will write price dollars per box, same unit as before, and then on this second column we have quantity supplied, unit is in boxes. And this time the supply is when price is 0, firms are selling nothing, price goes to 20, firms sell 20 units, 40, it becomes 40, on and on. We have few more information, so 60, it becomes 60, 80, it becomes 80. So few things we can observe. When price is 0, quantity supplied is 0, so the graph will start from the origin. And second, every time price goes up by 20 units, the quantity also goes up by 20 units. So let me again draw the inverse supply. Quantity supplied on the horizontal, price on the vertical. Unit for price is dollars per boxes. For quantity, it is boxes, and I have already said the graph must start from the origin, and for every run of 20 units, 20 boxes, the price goes up by 20 units. So the slope is 1. We can compute this also. I can show the slope rise over run. We can pick any 2 points. I'll pick the first 2. So price is 20 minus 0, quantity is 20 minus 0, 20 over 20 plus 1. This will be useful in our second part where we are asked to find out the expression for the inverse supply function. So for this, I will write price equal to the vertical intercept is 0 plus the slope, which is 1, times quantity supplied. So you can see price equal to quantity supplied is the expression for the inverse supply. Lastly, we also want to find out what is the quantity supplied when price is 50. When price is $50 per box, you see the quantity supplied is equal to the price, so 50 boxes. That's the second part, the supply side of the market. Now we want to find out the market equilibrium. And for that, we can use both graph as well as the algebraic expressions. So I'll start with the algebraic expressions. We know the inverse demand given as price equal to 100 minus quantity demanded, inverse supply. And so at equilibrium, the price should be such that quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. At equilibrium, the price is such that quantity demanded, so I will write Q now because I want both of them to be equal, is equal to the quantity supplied. So this part comes from the demand side of the market, and the supply, the second equality comes from the supply side of the market. This gives us one equation, 100 minus Q equal to Q. This is one equation, one unknown we can solve. So I will add Q to both sides. I get 100 on the left. I got rid of the variable on the left. And so now we have constant on the left and 2Q on the right. I can divide both sides by 2 to get 50 here on the left, Q by itself on the right. So at market equilibrium, quantity turns out to be 50 units, 50 boxes. But once I know the quantity, we can go back to either one of the two expressions, either demand or supply, and we can obtain the price. So I will use the supply. You can see it turns out to be easier to deal with, that price is equal to quantity. So price turns out to be $50 per box. So that's the equilibrium. I will call P star. P star is $50 per box. Q star is 50 boxes, and that's the market equilibrium. The second part asks us to find out the consumer surplus, the producer surplus, and the total surplus. For that, it is convenient to draw a graph. So we'll now combine the two graphs we had seen before, graph for the demand, graph for the supply, and we'll draw them in one. So now I will again start with quantity on the horizontal, price on the vertical, quantity is in boxes, price is in dollars per box, and we will draw the demand. We knew it was 100 vertical intercept, 100 horizontal intercept. That's the demand. This supply is a positive sloped straight line with slope equal to 1. So I'll call this supply. This is the demand, and we have already done the computation to find out the price where these two intersect is $50, and then the corresponding quantity turns out to be 50. Given this information, we know the consumer surplus is all the surplus the buyers receive by being able to buy the product at $50 per unit per box. So this triangle is the consumer surplus. The triangle below is the producer surplus, and then we add the two to obtain the total surplus. So let's find out the consumer surplus, which is 1/2 times base times height. That's the area of a triangle. And so now I can do the base is 50 minus 0, height is 100 minus 50, and that brings us to 1/2 times 50 times 50. This turns out to be 1250. We can check this using calculator. The producer surplus is again the same formula, 1/2 times base, it's the same base as before, times height, but height will be now 50 minus 0. So this also turns out to be 1/2 times 50 times 50. I get 1250. I have got both consumer surplus and producer surplus. I'll add the two to obtain the total surplus. 1250 turns out to be 2500. That's the total surplus. Now the third part is asking us to look at this market equilibrium outcome and see the impact of market intervention. Market intervention in terms of government coming up with a price floor in this part and price ceiling in the next part. So let me first go back and draw a graph again. Price here, 100 and so this is 100, this is 100, and this supply has a slope of 1. So now we know the equilibrium turns out to be 50 here, 50 here. The quantity is in boxes. The price is in dollars per box. So this is the market equilibrium. If the government intervenes in terms of creating a price floor. $60 per box, which means no seller can sell it at a price lower than 60. So let's put this 60 here. If price floor is 60, at this price we can find out the quantity supplied is somewhere here, quantity demanded is somewhere here, and then so demand is smaller than supply, which means we will have a surplus. Let me do the computation. Price floor. So quantity supplied equal to price. So 60 boxes. So this number is 60. Quantity demanded is, so you see, the inverse demand is P equal to 100 minus QT. I can rewrite it to obtain QT, the demand, as 100 minus P by simply moving the P on the left hand side to the right hand side will go as negative, and quantity demanded moves to the left from the right hand side and again changes sign. So quantity demanded turns out to be 100 minus 60, 40 boxes. So buyers want to buy 40 boxes, sellers want to sell 60 boxes. So we have a surplus which turns out to be 60 minus 40, 20 boxes. So that's the price floor. Remember, for price floor to be effective, it must be the case that it is above the market equilibrium. The last part deals with the price ceiling. And again, first I will show it in a graph. So let me draw quantity on the horizontal, price on the vertical, units is in dollars per box, and quantity is in boxes. The demand 100 and 100. The supply starting from the origin, slope 1. The market equilibrium 50 and 50. And now we have a price ceiling set at 30. Which means the quantity demanded is somewhere here. Quantity supplied is somewhere here. So buyers want to sell less. Sellers want to sell lower quantity and buyers want to buy larger quantity. So we will have a shortage. And now we can do the computation. When price is 30, quantity supplied is simply equal to the price, 30 boxes. This is quantity supplied. And then we have quantity demanded equal to 100 minus P, the expression we have seen from the previous part. 100 minus 30 turns out to be 70 boxes. And so we have a shortage. 70 minus 30, 40 boxes. Again, for the price ceiling to be effective, it must be the case that price ceiling is below the market equilibrium price. And this is a good point to stop.